I'm Rob Forsey. I'll be the moderator and host for today. So I hope we can kind of get started. This morning we're going to run through the program, and then there's an announcement at the end. So if you're leaving, make sure you ask somebody about it. So nowhere else in the nation is there a site with direct access from an interstate highway, thereby offering visitation to millions. Originally conceived, designed, and championed by the Canal Society of New York, the Erie Canal Heritage Park project is strengthened by a newly forged partnership with the New York State Thruway and Canal Corporation that is bringing a 20-year endeavor to fruition. This is an outstanding example of what public and volunteer sector partnerships can achieve. The site blends a one-of-a-kind living history experience with all of the conveniences that travelers and visitors value. Located at the Mayan-like ruins of Lock 52, the Erie Canal Heritage Park at Port Byron will offer a glimpse of authentic life on the Erie Canal in the mid-19th to 20th century. The intriguing walls of the former lock beckon New York State Thruway travelers to pause and discover history in a totally unique attraction that features an intact 19th century canal lock, the Erie House 1895 Tavern, a blacksmith shop, and mule barn, a soon-to-be constructed visitor center, walking trails, and direct site access from the village of Port Byron. Thomas X. Grasso is president of the Canal Society of New York State and first vice president and president emeritus of Inland Waterways International, based in the UK. He has authored papers and publications on New York State, French, Belgian, British, and German geology and canals. One of 6 children born to Italian immigrant parents in Lackawanna, New York, Grasso received a Bachelor of Arts degree in geology from the University of Buffalo and a master's degree in paleontology and stratigraphy and from Canal University in 1966. He was chairman of the geology department at Monroe Community College in Rochester from its formation in 1970 until he retired in 1999. In 1988, Grasso received the prestigious SUNY Chancellor's Award for Excellence in Teaching. In 2003, Tom was presented the Medal of Honor Award from the mayor of Villeneuve-sur-Lot in the south of France. In June 2009, he was special guest of honor opening the Braunston, England Historic Narrowboat Rally and Canal Festival. In September of 2009, he presented papers in the Blue Links Closing Conference, Canals and Urban Regeneration in Lille, France, and the World Canals Conference in Novi Sad, Serbia. In 2010, he presented in Lille, France, in the World Canals Conference in Rochester, New York, for the same conference again in the Netherlands in 2011, and Milano, Italy in 2014. Grasso was co-chair of the World Canals Conference in Rochester, New York, September 10th through the 15th, 2000, and chaired the World Canals Conference 2010, once again in Rochester. He is the author of the plan to remove Broad Street and restore the old Erie Canal in Rochester's downtown and its original bed across the city's intact 1842 aqueduct. Since 1995, he has been intimately involved in bringing the Erie Canal Heritage Park at Port Byron to fruition. Tom?
Thank you very much, Rob, for kind comments. It's indeed a pleasure to be here, to be in Auburn, and get to see some people that I know and get to meet new people. This is indeed an exciting project. The Canal Society of New York State has been around for a long time, and we are into preservation, restoration, where appropriate, interpretation, and nowhere better than at Port Byron. We have some people from the Society here. I'd like to introduce them. Our Executive Director, you may know her, Michelle Buhlman. Next to her, Cal Wysakowski, one of our board members, and officer from Fairport, and Dan Ward, Dr. Dan Ward, Erie Canal Museum in Syracuse. Our board member. So here we go. This is a logo. If at all possible, I'd like you to remember this logo for what's going to happen later. But and you don't control it from here. So every time I scratch my forehead, there's something. Anyway, it's 20 years in the making. A lot of groups, organizations, and people have been involved. Some still are, some aren't. But it's been a long time coming. There's been a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of tears. But finally, it's happening. It's happening as we speak, as you shall see. But yet there are some hurdles, there are some bumps in the road still ahead. That what's happening now is not the end. It's just the beginning. There's more and more to do. So let's begin with the fact that the interstate system in the United States of America is 50,000 miles long. Now, as Rob said, in my previous life, I was a geologist, so only a geologist and geographer can think like this. 50,000 miles long means if laid end to end, the interstate highway system would encircle the globe twice at the equator. In all that epic distance, it comes as no surprise that there are a lot of exits. And I don't need to read the number, because you can read for yourself. All of those exits take you onto a road. A big road, a small road, a middle-sized road, a street, whatever it is. Guess how many exits take you directly to something other than a road? That's how many. 0. Until now. And so it is at Port Byron. And the only one in the nation. It's, right now, what is going on is just the first part of this project. It consists of 3 phases, but it's definitely unique, nothing like it in the United States of America. It's authentic, everything is there. The Erie Canal is a big deal. It's a big deal. And we need to treat it that way. And that's one of the hurdles. The interpretation. What level should the interpretation be? To me, the entire success of this project is going to depend on 3 things. Interpretation, interpretation, and interpretation. And if it isn't done right, they'll never come back. Now, that's a little bit of Grassonian hyperbole. There are probably other things. I mean, the grounds ought to look nice, and so forth. The buildings ought to be well maintained, of course. So, and getting that point across, that not to lower the bar, but to raise it, and to raise it high, because this is unique. This is different. There's nothing like it in the United States. Why aren't we proud of this? Why don't we want to do the best? You're not going to get the second chance to make a first impression. We better get it right. It has great potential for visitation. There are many layers of storytelling, et cetera, et cetera. You can read all that. You don't need me to read it for you. We are into a fundraising campaign of $1.5 million for a lot of things that we need to get done, including web and apps and so forth. NYSTA, the Thruway Bills, they became a partner a couple of years ago. They're building this to the tune of well over $10 million. We will operate and maintain, and that's a hurdle. We have a business plan that says it's doable, and we have all kinds of other things. We're not just sitting back waiting for people to show up at the door. We are doing a lot of work. Get us prepared. Get us ready. We want to be, we can only control what we can control, and that is be prepared, have the proper interpretation in place, etc. So we're ready to go with something really, really great. We have established an operating committee, and for the first time, and they're going to oversee what kinds of things are going to happen on site, the gift shop, what's going to be for sale in the gift shop, etc., etc. For the first time in the history of the society, we are inviting 3 people to be on this committee as volunteers from the community. And that's from Cuba County, from Auburn, from Port Byron, to join with us. And especially people with some business sense and know how to run a business. I don't know how to run a business. I would have done it by now. So we don't know everything, and we'd like some help if at all possible. So if you're at all interested, let us know. The first, a little history. There was more than one Erie Canal. The first Erie Canal was only 4 feet deep, and it could float boats of whatever it says there. Can you hit the? There we go. It was 4 feet deep, was about here on me, and about there, LeBron James. But yet this narrow ribbon of water made New York the Empire State, brought the boom towns to America, and it was a canal for a nation. The story of Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland is the same as Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, Schenectady, and so forth. It was enlarged in the 1830s, 40s, and 50s. That's part of the story of Port Byron. It was enlarged again in the 1890s. The red line means we nearly lost it. And it's a long story. We don't have time to go through all the details. Suffice it to say that our entire canal system was about to be abandoned in the late 1890s. But riding to the rescue, fresh from San Juan Hill, complete with a Michelob in his hand. You gotta love a guy like this. And he saved the day. And today's canal is a high capacity, 3,000 ton, and it's TR stitch. And TR stitch is quite different from Clinton stitch. If we could just back up one, can we do that? There we go. So this is the story of the 19th century canal. It was towpath driven. That's part of the story at Port Byron. You notice there are two boats lashed together. They're called double headers. And that's part of the story at Port Byron. Overhead you see that trolley, the high-speed trolley, the R.S.E., Rochester, Syracuse, and Eastern. You could whip people from downtown Rochester to downtown Syracuse in 3 hours and 20 minutes. And in 1910, that was probably fast. And all of that has implication for Port Byron. Next. And so and it was mom and pop. These boats were not operated by corporations, it was mom and pop. This young girl is not standing on a deck of a boat. She's standing at her front door. She's standing on her front porch. And they would live in that back cabin, do everything you do in your house, and travel from place to place. I think that's an interesting story. I hope you do too. But that's the beauty of Port Byron. So it's not just about canal technology. There's a lot of canal technology to tell, but it's all about layers of people and stories and so forth. And so why Port Byron? Why not Brockport? Why not any place else? Of all these jewels of towns along the canal system. Who cares what the colors are at the west end of the map? Who cares what they are? That's not important. What's important is that all those colors that are so divergent at the west end of the map all converge at Port Byron. They're all there. The R.S.E., Clinton's Ditch, the purple line, the blue straight line, the secondary canal, the thruway, etc., etc. The only one that's not part of the story at Port Byron is TR Stitch, which is in the Seneca River now, as you see the gold line going out of sight. So what is it? So this is the project. You see there are 3 phases. Phase 1 is already completed. Phase 2, shown in yellow, is underway as we speak. Phase 3 starts next week. So what are they? First of all, the white line starting at the top of the map, off-ramp, on-ramp, directly from the thruway, and the big P, uppercase P, parking lot directly off the thruway. That's done. You can stop today if you want, eastbound on the thruway. Then there's the lock. It was twinned lock, originally built, lengthened in 1853, lengthened on one end for those double boats in 1888. So the 2 boats lashed together, didn't have to be uncoupled. They could be locked up or down on their way to Albany. The white line separates our property, which includes the Erie House, the mule barn, blacksmith shop, from the thruway. We own about 2 acres. They own 16 acres approximately. And their property includes all of the parking lots, the lock, the visitor center that's soon to come, etc. So the Erie House, 1895, built by Italian immigrants, mule barn and blacksmith shop, all of those are under restoration now. Then comes the visitor center starting next week, that's phase 3, and then the parking lot off of Route 31. And those are the essential elements, and it should be ready for opening fully about a year from now or more. We plan to bring the New York State Canal Conference to Auburn to coincide with this, or approximately, is that right, Cal? And so hopefully you'll see and hear more about that. So what I'd like to do then is go through this with some more images. Here is a plan of the site. There's still some problems like a wetland in the canal bed on our property that has to go away. I don't care how it goes away, it has to go away. It has to go away, so you'll see, you'll agree. You better. No, you'll see why it's important. But Federal Highway has a lot of commandments. They've got more than 10 commandments. And one of these commandments is thou shalt not have parking lot cross-pollination. There will be no social intercourse between the thruway parking lot and the Route 31 parking lot. Hence, the visitor center. They would not allow parking from Route 31 or direct access from Port Byron unless we can guarantee that no one will walk from the thruway parking lot to the Route 31 parking lot and then on to Route 31. Not walk. Can't do it. And Route 31 people that are parking off of that road will not be able to walk to the thruway parking lot. So, the red building, the visitor center, is not a visitor center, well it is, but it's there to control access. So you see there's 2 different portals. If you walk from the Route 31 parking lot into the visitor center, there's going to be a turnstile. You don't have to put a coin in it. When you go through the turnstile, you're going to get something. That's something, whatever it is, a round token, a square token, who cares? That's something that you're going to carry away with you because you can only get out if you put that token into that machine. If you come from the thruway, there's another turnstile, kicks up a different token. And they said, great. So we had a Route 31 parking lot. So if you're going to do that, you must put a gift shop in there, and so forth. So here we go. We're going to start walking through the project. We'll start at the off-ramp from the thruway, we'll do the parking lot, then we'll do the visitor center, et cetera, and we're walking through the project just as if you wanted to visit there next year sometime. At one time, there was a temporary exit. While the thruway was under construction, it was only completed to that point, and people could get off and exit onto Route 31 and continue and get back on somewhere else. Now, if you walked over to where that truck is, last year, at about the same time, this is what you would have seen. And now, the old exit, we are adaptively reusing to access the site. And it will be the parking lot. And if you continue to walk forward now, and each step you take, it's now no longer July, it's August, it's September. You go to about where that red truck is. This is how it looked in October. That's the dashed white line is the old exit, the alignment of that old exit. And this is the way it looked in December. It's ready for action. You can see other elements of the project, or at least where they're going to go, the Route 31 parking lot, the visitor center right at the end of the parking lot, box 52, and the Erie House off in the distance. And the white circles are sites that we believe need something special. When you pull off that thruway, there's nothing at that first circle that says you've arrived at something special. And it has to be something. Well, what could it be? Well, I have an idea. But it could be our logo. That's why I said, remember that logo. And it will just say, welcome to Canal Heritage Park. It could be a sculpture. It could be something modern, totally whatever. I had an idea the other day, okay? And I'm so good at being a graphic artist, So don't everybody stand up and applaud when you see this. We have a lot of blocks of limestone from that lot, okay? There's about 150 feet of that stuff. And we could use that to maybe create this. Ignore everything, okay? These are the limestone blocks all laid together, making a pedestal. Why don't we recreate the bow of a boat? Not as a picture, not as a painting, a real one. To scale, 17 and a half feet wide, 12 feet high. It juts out, sticks out beyond that pedestal of lock blocks. And we named the vessel Welcome. And instead of the fellow there pulling in a tow line, maybe he's, waving at you. Who knows? So that's just one idea. But there are experts that know this stuff, unlike me. And we have, in addition to our business plan, we also have a plan that's going, the third draft is being worked on as we speak, the final draft. And we have 50 pages of design plans, one page of which is this. And at the end of the parking lot, at number 1, there is maybe a nice outlined metal sculpture of a mule. In the upper left-hand corner, you see the scale of this thing. It's like, whoa. And makes, we think, a statement. We have to fund that. We have to fund it. And how we fund that is some more struggles. Yet to come. The visitor center. That's an earlier design, but it's approximate shape. It's not a large building. The visitor center, you will enter here from the entering from the thruway parking lot. Has a little patio for those that don't want to go on the site, but just want to look around and then head back out. Nice clean restrooms will be in there. Our small gift shop, it's about 27, something like that. 2,700 square feet, it's not a large building. A more recent rendering of it from T.Y. Lynn in Rochester shows some slight differences. The patio has been shrunk. We increased the interior space, more gift shop space, more interpretation. And this is the gateway. This is the gateway for Cuba County. This is the gateway for other canal sites across the state. We're not, Canal Society isn't here just about Port Byron. It's not just about us. It's about you. It's about Cuba County. It's about Camillus Canal Site. It's about all these canal sites, a lot of them done by volunteers. Because two things the volunteers have, okay? We don't have a lot of money. We may not have a lot of clout. We don't have a lot of votes. We have 300 members. No one's running because away from us because we may not agree with something or stand up and hold our sign. But we do have knowledge, and we do have passion, and we have commitment, and we have great, great ideas if we can get them funded. So here we go. At the inside the visitor center, there's going to be all kinds of things. One is this wonderful lock model that used to be the Erie Canal Museum. It will be the centerpiece in the visitor center, built in 1895, 3?
It was built for the 1893 World's Fair.
1893 World's Fair. It was New York State statement. It's 11 feet long, 11 to 12 feet long, something like that. I mean, it's a massive thing. Note that white circle again. What the heck is that? And that's some of the canal technology. We can't go into details of it, but basically it's a water-powered winch. There's nothing like it in North America. Nothing. No canal in North America had a water-powered winch. You can haul boats into the lock with water power. How that operates will take another 10 minutes maybe. So just accept that on faith. I can demonstrate it later if there's time. Because Mr. Forsey here is going to exert some force. And he's going to say, this, and then he's going to keep smiling until he gets to this. Well, this is the way it looked. This is the historic. Note that jungle in the background. So this is lock 52, and it's like a fossil. It's like a fossil. You're looking at a dinosaur skeleton. What made it breathe? What made it operate? How did it? That was the flesh. That was the blood. That was the guts of this thing. And this is how it looked. So that's the last drop of Lake Erie water you're looking at. The last drop of Lake Erie water, all the way from Buffalo, filled the canal to Port Byron. Then this is the first lock eastbound that went up, because Jordan is higher than Montezuma. So you stepped up to the level of Jordan. This lock lifted you then eastbound, and above that, the water came from here. The water that filled that lock upstream was from Owasco Lake. How that happens is another story. We could go on for another couple hours if you understand. We can tell you all. But there's all kinds of wood and things that, and just having this image, just having the image. You stand there, you look at this image, you look up and you see the fossil, and it should click. So, this is the way it looked. Look at the limestone blocks, you see them on the left? And that we could make a pedestal out of, with something on it, with the welcome sign, you know? This is how it looked in, July? And notice how that one wall of the lock, the Mayan-like ruin, has been quarried. And we think the town or the state did it. And so we've been uncovering these blocks on site. Next one is what it looked like in October. You can see the trails are in. There's a pedestrian bridge on the right. That would be coming from the visitor center when it's completed. The Erie House is that white building in the distance beyond the power lines. And this is the way it looked a few weeks ago. And it's ready to go, and there's fences everywhere. But that's code, you know, you have to put a fence up. But I ask you a question. How many seconds do you think it'll take for some kid to realize you don't have to go on that black path, you could go right up here. You gotta walk on the lot itself. Do you think that'll take 1 second? Or whatever. But anyway, it's there. It has to be. You all understand that. You all understand that. So it's there. So anyway, that's pretty neat. Now, next to the lock, as virtually all locks across the system, there were businesses. And note these ropes, incidentally. Anyway, there was Kern's Meat Market, and again, layers of human history, so we'd like to interpret that. And the next one, the group of boys, maybe they helped Mr. Kern, shown there. But this fellow, Ben, is that correct, I think? Ben, right there, African-American boy, became the mayor of Port Byron in the 1930s. Became the mayor of Port Byron in the 1930s. I think that's fantastic. That is incredible. And all politics is local, someone once said. And I think that's a story worth telling. So the head of the lock, boat eastbound after racing up to getting towards Jordan, the central, that triangular piece of wood, that's called the central pier. Let's take the water away because you get a better view of it. It has slits in the side, so a little canal technology. Remember, there was a water-powered winch. Water got into that chamber, next one, which maybe we can outline with metal tubes. You don't have to rebuild the thing, just outline it because we'll have that image. You just look up. Water entered those three portals, dropped down, turned the turbine. That's as far as we're going with that story. That's unique. It's unique. Next one shows Lock 62 in Pittsburgh, one of the few locks in operation that also the photographer caught the winch. It's like there's spools of thread on a sewing machine, only they're horizontal spool. This one, remember I said, what are those ropes about? You can see the rope leading from that spool This spool over here is all filled up because it just pulled that boat into the lock. And neat stuff. How we doing, Mr. Forson? Okay. Here's the third Erie Canal, 1896. They're deepening to 9 feet. They spent $9 million in 2 years in the 1890s. I don't know what that would be in today's dollars. Some of you are so knowledgeable, you could probably bang that out in like a few seconds. $9 million. It was only 40% complete. Remember the red line? Imagine the blowback. They abandoned the project. $9 million later, 40% complete. And whoa, that's when we nearly lost it. Teddy Roosevelt saved the day, etc.
20 times.
I'm sorry?
20 times.
20 times 9 million. So that's, let's see, 180 million? That's why I was a geologist and not an engineer. Okay, so there's the view looking east. Note the Erie House on the left. Now, if you stood at that lock today, this is what you'd see. Where are the stone walls? They're there. That's the wetland issue. That has to go away. Of course, in a legal manner. That's just 50,000 dump trucks and fill it up. So, but we have to work at that. We have to get it done. That's what I'm trying to say. And we are going to have a cutting, right? In November, first Saturday in November, we're going to go in there, at least cut the vegetation down. We can do that. This is the way it looked in 1995 when it was cut down once. So all that jungle has come back since. You can see the stone walls are still there, stone walls on the other side. And this is how it should look. This is Jordan, one of the best spots on the canal, it really is. What a wonderful park. They have the aqueduct, they have the towpath on one side, and that's what an abandoned canal does look like. And that's what we want Port Byron to look like. Because that might attract people to come back. That jungle isn't going to attract anybody for a second, in my humble opinion. So here's the Erie House, built in 1895 by Pietro and Salvatore Vanderbilt. 2 nice Italian boys, and Maud the dog. And Maud the dog is their hero. They took a lot of pictures of Maud the dog, and that's great because that shows mule barn in the black, in the background. It shows the blacksmith shop. It shows all kinds of other stuff that we know where the building should be. Upstairs there were boarding rooms. Local legend has it that various and sundry nefarious activities. We aren't going to tell that story. It's also haunted. One person claims to have seen the specter. He'd like to drink a little bit. The entrance back here was for women. A proper lady would not enter in the 1890s, at least. I'm sure glad that's changed. That they would not enter a tavern from the front door because they have to go in the back and enter. They called it the restaurant. So anyway, that's the Pietro and Salvatore Vanderbilt. This is the way it looked a couple of years later. Maud the dog makes her appearance. And look at these guys. I love that image. You know, now that's either Sunday, and people didn't dress like that to go to the Erie House. They can't. There's something funky going on. It's an Italian holiday, or it's a Sunday, or it's a whatever. But those guys are smartly dressed, no doubt about it. And this is how it looked a few years ago. There's Michelle and Ted Bartlett from Crawford and Stern, our historic architects. And as you can see, it needed help, big time. And this is how it's going to look. what they're working on now, from the bottom up. That building's coming apart, piece by piece. Asbestos plaster all through the interior, at least portions of the interior. There's lead paint all over the place. There's this and that. There's an elevator going in to be ADA compliant. So this is a big deal. This is a big deal. This is, you're looking at $3.2 or $3.3 million to restore the Erie House, the blacksmith shop, the mule barn, some parking for staff, some trails, etc. This is how it looked a couple weeks ago, and they're going at it big time. Most of what they're doing now is on the inside, so not much on the outside, except for that foundation. That foundation you see is gorgeous, but it was covered by this much concrete. You just lathered over it. Somebody had to go in there like this and chip all that out, scrape out all of the bad mold and whatever, and all by hand repoint it. And that's what they're doing. We're going to bring this thing back to life the way it looked when it was built. And the other part of the story, Adelina passed away, the mother, passed away in 1946. She's supposedly the one that's haunting the house, or possibly her mother. Marie Van Denno, who lived in that house, the older sister, until 1994 when she passed. That's when this all began, the following year. And Teresa, the younger sister, who passed away in 1989, 1988, about 5 or 6 years before her older sister. You see the blacksmith shop in the background. What about this is about? You know, the Van Denno family, you know, at that corner where I had said we put a Volvo boat, maybe we put the Van Denno girls. Benvenuto. Casa mia. Some pasta. You gotta have pasta. We'll have a spaghetti dinner every Sunday at the Erie House. If it's Sunday in the Grasso household, if it's Sunday, it's not meat to press. It's pasta and sauce. Ma the dog. What do you see in the background? That's the blacksmith shop. That's going to be put there. And behind that, in the dark in the distance, is the mule barn. We already spent, what, $75,000 to preserve the resource. You see, these things were falling in the ground. We had to preserve the resource even when we didn't know this project was going forward. And we were spending money like drunken sailors. But we got a lot more out of it than a hangover. So there's the mule barn. It has to be moved back to this location. There's the blacksmith shop that has to be pivoted 90 degrees and goes about where that truck is. So we've been at this. We've been at this. I'm trying to get the point across that we haven't just been sitting by waiting for someone to help us, and we're not doing anything. We are doing everything we possibly can with the funds we have left. We made the matches. We made the matches on over $2 million. And we're running, and we don't have a lot of money. But that was the only way it was going to get done. And we have to thank Theater County, Mr. Lynch is here, for all their help and assistance throughout the years and their encouragement. Anyway, so those are being worked on as we speak. So I think we've come to pretty much the end. Let's see what happens next. Well, this is the way it's going to be built fully. The phase 10 is maybe put the lock back together in some fashion, put some lock gates on it. They don't have to, obviously, we don't have to put water in it. A canal boat to scale in front of the Erie House. That's not what a canal boat looked like. Okay. The graphic artist who did this was a student of Impressionism. When I saw that, I said, God, that'll only cost you here, I forgot to mention on an earlier image that I showed, there's a Clinton's ditch lock right there. It's buried. And the Clinton's ditch lock led to a dry dock, which is also buried. That's not our property, but it's something we're looking towards in the future, and we're urging the powers that be, if, as long as something isn't built over it that can't be removed at some point in the future, we need to preserve that site so we can access it eventually. And over here somewhere is the RS&E powerhouse, now privately owned, and that's phase 100. If we could ever acquire that in some shape, form, or manner, that would be really neat. And we could tell the story of the RS&E and use that as a museum, et cetera, et cetera. So, here we go. Next one, I think, is we finally got a handle on it. That's from inside the Erie House. But we finally got a handle on it. There's something to be said. We're not giving up. We never gave up. And people said, you guys are stupid for keeping going, and we probably are. We're just too stupid to know it. And we kept at it, and luckily, some people were put in place at the thruway that said, you know, all those years we said we couldn't, that's not true. We can do it. We've been here 18 years, so we can't do this. We can't do this. And yet, there's somebody in place, high up on the food chain, that says we can do it. And it happened. Just like that. I got called into the office by the CFO, and I was like, what's going to happen now? And he said, have a seat, and how you doing, and all that stuff. He says, remember all that we were saying? We're going to, it's our moral obligation. It's our moral obligation for the education, for this and for that, all the stuff we've been saying, and that's how it happened. That's how it happened. And God love them. So, now that we have a handle on it, please come forward and help us. We are fundraising. I'm not getting out the tin cup right now. You know what you can do if you can. So we would like to have that conversation, if at all possible. Now, if you want a behind-the-scenes tour of the site, I'd be willing to come back out here and or meet you on site. Michelle, there's a sign-up sheet somewhere.
On the table, yes.
On the table, and we'll set a date in the future. So make sure your email is there, and it'll be fun. And we can take you around, get you inside the building, maybe. You have to have enough hard hats, I think. You can arrange that. So, anyway, I would like to have more conversation with you. Come back to Auburn again, and this is great for Stephen County. The business plan says, as presently constructed, 7.25 full-time equivalent employees. So we need interpreters, we need cash register, we need a manager to run the gift shop, we need groundskeepers, we need janitors, we think the operating budget is somewhere in the neighborhood of $400,000 for salaries, insurances, the throughway bills. We have to maintain everything. We have to operate it. We've got to mow the lawn, we've got to paint the buildings. But I'll leave you with one number. That is 1.5% for the people that drive by this site on the eastbound lane alone is 55,000 people. 1/2 of 1%. Now, how would you like to get 1/2 of 1% on your test score? I mean, that's not a lot 2% of the population of Syracuse and Rochester, which is an hour from Rochester, probably 30 minutes from Syracuse. That bumps it up to 85,000 people a year potential. Will we get there? I don't know. But the numbers look promising, very conservative, and we are redoing that business plan, and we may fold in some of these jobs. If you can plant flowers and mow the lawn, maybe you can clean toilets at the same time, or the other, every, whatever. But we want to refine it so we get it, so it's not overly onerous to achieve. Anyway, that's the project. We think it's exciting. We hope you think it's exciting. And it's been a real pleasure to be here.
Any questions for Tom? We'll look at him here.
You've got all the structures on the site are since the most recent, or most of the recent construction of the Erie Canal. What about the 70 years before that? What was there?
Before
Before
these buildings were put up, it was pretty much a wilderness. And it was just on the outskirts of Port Byron. Clinton's Ditch, when they came through, actually took a different route. Clinton's Ditch curved and went right into the village of Port Byron. Like, something like this. When they built the canal we're looking at now with the lock, it went this way. And completely abandoned. And the people of Port Byron fought and fought and fought. And they failed. The state giveth, and the state taketh away. So this was abandoned, except for that lock that's buried, and was a dry dock. So it was kind of on the outskirts of town. But I hope I'm answering the question.
And what happened in 1890 or so when the construction began?
Oh, after 1890, then when Teddy Roosevelt's ditch opened in 1918, that's when all these buildings were abandoned, the lock was abandoned, and it all began to come apart.
But why were those buildings built there during the period?
Because there was an Italian community about a mile between Port Byron and Montezuma. There was a small Italian community, and Pietro Bandetto was probably what we call patrone. And the patrone would write letters to his hometown, to his paisanos, and say, I can get you a job if you come. And he would probably take some money from them to get them the job. They would work in the fields, in the mucklands. Right, so it was about a mile, half a mile west of the Erie House. Well, he put that there specifically to cater to not only the Italian immigrant community, but there was also that dry dock on the opposite bank where workers could come over at lunch and get a beer or two. And we have the cash register. The cash register, really neat. It's in the Erie Canal Museum. The 15-cent key is completely worn out. We have signs, we have all kinds of stuff. Marie Vandetto donated a lot of things to us before she passed. Any other questions?
How do you hook up with the Canal Museum and Syracuse Theater? What's the partnership?
The partnership is we have Dan on our board, and we have an operating agreement because all of our collection that was housed in the State Museum in Auburn, not accessible to the public, just housed there, had to be moved. So we got together and we said, I think instead of the Canal Museum, the Canal Society maybe rowing in different directions, maybe sometimes in the same direction, but why don't we cooperate? Why don't we become a partner? All our collection is now housed in the State Museum. We have a written agreement on how that's going to operate and how it's going to be accessible to the public and researchers. So it was a matter of, the two of us sitting down, and I said, Dan, what do you think? Who's going to be on our board? I think the Canal Society and Canal Museum should cooperate because it's a long story. There was some what sometimes the Italians call bad blood between the Canal Museum and the Canal Society, because we started to save that building, the Canal Society. And we saved the Waylock building from destruction, but then it all unraveled because of the leaderships involved, whatever, and they went their separate ways. But now we've come back together and we're working together. So part of their collection will be on exhibit, some of ours, et cetera, in the visitor center. So it's, we think, Dan, can you add to that? How it all happened?
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of things have changed in the very recent past. I completely redesigned the first floor of the museum because in 1962 we were the only canal museum in the country, I think. Now there are 40 of them in New York State. So what we do is we've redesigned ours as an entry point to go to other sites. So you go through, you get a basic introduction, and then because we're the only maritime museum in the world with no water near it, all of these other sites have something special that you can extend your education from. So we would have right on hand at the end of our main exhibit maps to get here, and explanation of what it is that you get to see here that we can't show you. And I've been out there in the past month, and I think it's just great that you can walk through there and touch those big stones.
Right.
This really is our pyramids.
That's right.
This is American pyramids.
That's right.
It's a fantastic thing to have here.
How we came to an agreement that we should work together probably happened, Mr. Constantino, because we had a beer one time. We started talking, and you know, we're having a lot of fun. Mr. Lynch?
I apologize if I missed it, but did you mention the World Canal Conference and the Closing the Gaps effort along the whole canal?
No, I didn't, but I will. World Canals Conference coming to Syracuse in 2017.
So it was
September.
perfect timing for this.
Correct, exactly. And Closing the Gaps, I know not that much about, so you want to say something?
Well, the New York State, I think it's the New York State Canal Society is working on closing. There's gaps in the canal trail.
Oh, the New York State Canal Corporation. Correct, yeah.
And they're looking for funding through this Upstate Revitalization Fund to make all these pieces that are missing. There's a large piece that's missing between Port Byron and Wayne County.
Right now, you can go nonstop from Buffalo to Newark, maybe Lyons now. But then from Newark, Lyons to Port Byron is a big leap. You got to go on the roads, so that's. Jim? Yes.
When the canal expanded down to Cuba Lake and over to Seneca Lake,
Correct.
was there any local influence to make that go south, being the geography of Port Byron, Montezuma?
Yes, I think so. Yeah. And that canal that goes there now wasn't part of the original Barnes Canal plan. It was added later because people rose up and said, we need that canal upgraded to the level of the Erie in 1907 or something.
So logistically, access to the site from the thruway is only eastbound traffic, correct? So getting sent from the Canal Museum in Syracuse, how's traffic going to be directed? Get off of Weedsport and
You get off,
31?
there will be signage at Weedsport directing westbound travelers off the thruway and then on to 31.
Where will the admission charge be? Like if people come just to use the grounds, will there be a
Correct.
charge?
We are discussing that as we speak, but if there will be a charge, it'll probably be somewhere around $5 for adults and maybe kids $3.50 or $3. But we haven't decided that completely. So we think that, combined with sales at the gift shop, should make this a success.
So I'd like to thank Tom for coming today. We really appreciate the presentations that he went through. We've got a last few minutes for Laura to make the announcement.
Michelle, did you want to say something?
You can use the site without having to pay though.
Right now.
Right, I know, but I mean, you'll be able to come in, use the bathrooms, go to the gift shop.
Yeah.
Without having
Yeah,
to pay.
visitor center.
You can access the visitor center without one penny. If you want to go to the lock in the Erie House and so forth, then it will be the $5. But not to get into the visitor center. Good point. Thank you. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I would gladly give up my time for you anytime. Tom, I have to say, I don't know the last time that we've laughed so much, so thank you. We've had some very heavy topics this year, and this is a wonderful way to tie up our year. And a very big thank you to Jesse, who holds it all together. And thank you to our committee. We get together regularly, we read your evaluations. We take very seriously all the topics that you bring to the fore, of which there are very many. So we hope you enjoy your summer, but check your email boxes end of July-ish for your renewal. We're happy to say that we are able to keep the membership the same because we are growing. And because we are growing, we have another exciting announcement, which is that we're going to move to a new venue. And with that, I also just want to say that our time here at Theater Mack has been enlightening and fulfilling, and we're so grateful to you, Eileen, and your staff. We're also grateful to the Schweinfurt. Donna, thank you for making extra room for our cars so we can all be here. So thank you so much, and thank you, Susan, And we're very hopeful that our time here has brought more attention to this amazing treasure in our community. So in the coming year, you can look forward to, in no particular order, and we do reserve the right to change without notice, depending on what's coming up and what's current and what's topical. But we're going to hopefully hear about our hospital in the fall, and then we'll also look at the council and mayoral races, the Harriet Tubman, another great home, another great historic landmark, and also how the National Park Service is coming along with that. Arts and the economy, higher ed in our economy, Cuyahoga County and regional economic initiatives. And then I think I've covered it all. Have I forgotten anything, Jesse? Oh, name tags, evaluations. And thank you again, thank you all.
Where are we going?
Oh gosh, yes. I wanted to keep you in the room, so a bit of suspense. So we're going to be at the Hilton Garden Inn in September and throughout the year. So, thanks, Guy.